Hello, Namaskar. Welcome to week 3, lecture 3, design periodized plan demo. So, up till now we covered what is program designing, why program designing is required, and what are the different structures of program designing. So, from week 3, let's learn how to actually design a program, how to apply all the concepts and principles that have been covered in real case scenarios. So the objective of this lecture is review the fitness training design framework. So as mentioned in the previous lectures, we will be using fitness training design framework to apply program designing principles and concepts. The second objective is to understand the exerciser background. We will be presenting two cases. So, before you design a fitness program, you should understand the background about the exerciser. So, this would be the objective number 2. Objective number 3 is get familiar with how to set SMART goals. So considering the background of the exerciser, we will now set a measurable time-bound goal for the two cases. Then the third step is to get familiar with how to create a periodized training design. Now, once you have understood the exerciser's background, once you have set the measurable goal, now you create the something called as periodized training, and this would be demonstrated with both the cases. And the last objective is be familiar with how to create a periodized plan. So the term periodized training, the term periodized plan, you would see how it is actually applied in the given cases. The outcome of this lecture is be familiar with the fitness training design framework, because this is very important. You are going to design a program. It means you are going to follow certain steps. So before you follow a certain step, you should be aware about what are the steps and what exactly each step means. So at the end of this lecture, when you are using the fitness training design framework, a program design structure, you should be familiar with each part of that. That is the outcome of the lecture. The second outcome is, after watching two examples of setting the goal, you should be able to set the goal for yourself. And here we will be specifically emphasize on conditioning fitness variables. So you should be able to set a SMART goal to develop or improve your own conditioning. The third outcome is you should be able to create a periodized training for improving your self-conditioning fitness. And lastly, you should be able to design a periodized plan for your self-conditioning fitness variable. Now let's start with objective number 1. Recollect the fitness training design framework, which was introduced in week 2. Now we are going to use this framework to learn to design a program, a fitness program. Now this program design structure has 5 steps. So since it's a step, you cannot skip anything and you have to follow the given sequence. So the first step is you set a measurable and time bound goal. The second step is you create a periodized training. The third step is you select what fitness variable you are going to train within that periodized training. as even mentioned earlier, the different type of fitness variables are classified as health specific fitness, that include CRF, that include muscular strength, muscle endurance, flexibility, body composition. And for sport specific fitness, it includes power, it includes COD or agility, it includes conditioning, it includes speed, it includes balance and coordination. So this course is specifically focused on conditioning fitness variable. So step number 3 is where you choose among this fitness variable what are you going to train within the periodized training cycle that you have created. Then in step number 4, on weekly basis, you design a program, that is you set frequency, intensity, training method and volume for every fitness variable in each week. This is what you do in step number 4. And then finally in step number 5, you design workout, that is you select exercise or drills. This is what you do in step number 5. Now this framework ensures that the drill that you select is challenging, progressively overload per week per fitness variable. And since you are applying a periodized plan, you ensure that this stimulation and progressive overload that you give, it is balanced and it is repetitive in a cyclic pattern. So that is the benefit of having this template in place. Now let's apply this template to design a program, fitness program for 2 cases. So the first step in program designing is setting a goal, setting a SMART goal. Here SMART, S is specific, M means measurable, T is time bound, R is realistic, A is achievable. So you start the program design by setting a time bound, a measurable and a very specific fitness goal. In order to do that, you have to consider the case study. So SMART goal needs consideration of exerciser's background. What background are we talking about? Now this background is mentioned as demographic information, health history, exercise history and fitness level. So you need to consider these 4 backgrounds. It's a very common experience that you may not have all this background information and you have to go to set the goal with the limited information that you have. So I would try to cover the scenarios where you set a goal without having certain information. Like you may not have the fitness test data because you have never done a fitness test at the first place. So how do you set a goal? So we will be covering this scenario for the given case as well. Now let's start by understanding the scenario, the exercise background. Now this is a 38 years old male fitness professional. It means he is a fitness trainer. He doesn't have any exercise, he doesn't have any medical history. HH means health history. So with this one information, he is a fitness trainer. What do you understand? Number one, he needs to have a fitness level which is close to average or above average. He cannot be sedentary. He should not be sedentary. Obviously, he should not be obese or overweight. So, with this information, you can guess what fitness needs to be improved. Second, health history. HH means health history. So, just as a disclaimer, this program design is specifically meant for individuals who do not have any health history. If you have an health history, you may need to consider discussing it with an allied health professional before you design a fitness program. So going ahead, now consider the exercise background. This exerciser, there is a 2 months of gap, and before that he was following a health specific and sport specific training for 6 months. So he was trying to improve. So he was trying to improve these fitness variables for the 6 months duration. Before, there was a gap of 2 months. Now this information itself tells that he is an advanced exerciser. Advanced doesn't really mean that someone is doing a very high intensity exercise or someone is doing a very complex exercise. Advanced means you are training multiple fitness variables, you are training for a longer duration, along with your training at a high intensity and complex exercises. So understanding that someone is an advanced exerciser or has an experience of exerciser, it helps you to choose the stimulation or progression matching to their experience. Otherwise, you would always have an experience saying that the program that you have designed is too easy or too hard. For that reason, you should consider the exercise history. Now going in detail, if someone is exercising, you need to know what exercise they are doing. How do you get this information? You simply ask the frequency, you simply apply acute training variable here. You ask how many times in a week a given fitness variable was trained. You ask what is the intensity, you ask what was the training method used, and you ask what was the volume. So this information you keep it for the latest 1 month. Now this information is about the current 1 month. So the exerciser has been exercising. Now this information, the exerciser is exercising for 4 days per week. Among that 4 days, he is training 2 or 3 days for cardio, 2 or 3 days for conditioning type 1, or 2 or 3 days for power. So his 4 days is distributed among 3 fitness variables. So this is very clear that he is training 3 fitness variables. The volume of exercise that he does for cardio is 2 km per session. At what intensity? At 70 to 90% of HRR. When it comes to conditioning, every session he is covering 1 km. How he is covering? He is covering at an intensity of 90 to 100% of HRR. So over here, what is the fundamental information you will need? For every fitness variable, health specific or sport specific, you should able to identify how to write the intensity and how to write the volume. And to go through this fundamental information, it is recommended that you watch or you enroll to the Fundamental of Sports Training, Recovery and Monitoring course, where this concept has been explained throughout the week and made practice by giving the cases. So, coming back to this case, this exerciser is doing a very high intensity of cardio and conditioning. I would not explain the power part because this course is concerned with conditioning. So, I would explain more about cardio and conditioning FITTVP. So, let us emphasize more on that. So, both cardio session and conditioning session is been done at a very high intensity. Now, what is the fitness test? Now, for this case, we have a fitness test. Let's assume we have not done the fitness test. So, what do you know about this case? Just ignore the fitness test part for now. So, we know that the exerciser is having 2 months of gap, and currently he is exercising 4 days per week. I will add another information, and he is exercising since last 4 weeks. So, the FITTVP that is mentioned, he has been following this for last 4 weeks. We know this. What we know, before 2 months of gap, for 6 months he was training to improve health specific and sport specific fitness. Now, for you to relate this amount of work, what exactly it means, just relate it with your own workout. So, if you are doing conditioning workout, if you have done conditioning workout covering 1000 meter at 100% of the aerobic capacity, you can easily understand how demanding it is, and it is not something that can be done for a beginner level. So, you may have a higher conditioning capacity, but the work capacity to cover 1000 meter at 100% is something very challenging. You can easily relate that if you have your own work experience. If you do not have work experience, then the challenge is much more for you to understand this information. What does it mean about the exerciser? And in that case, you have two options. First, get the information about the fitness test. Do the fitness test and get the information. In case you do not have a choice of doing a fitness test, simply ask the exerciser what fitness level you want to improve. The exerciser may explain, for example, I cannot run for more than 2.4, I cannot run 2.4 kilometer continuously. The current capacity of the exerciser says that he is able to run 2 kilometers, but in a continuous manner. LDS means continuous training. So, for a given exerciser, he has a capacity to cover 2 kilometer non-stop. So, if you are not doing fitness test, simply ask. He may give you answer saying that I want to run 2.4 kilometer non-stop so that I can improve my 2.4 kilometer run test capacity. So, just simply asking the exerciser what is the fitness goal, you would able to understand what fitness needs to improve. So, this is the second approach where you can set a SMART goal if you do not have your own experience. Now let's focus to set the goal considering the fitness test data that we have. So the exerciser has a current VO2 max of 39 ml per kg per minute done by Bruce protocol. Now again, Bruce protocol is just a name of a test. So when the exerciser has executed this test, his VO2 max is 39 and this represents an average VO2 max, and this needs to be improved. Why? Two things. Directly, it's the client's requirement. The exerciser says his fitness goal is to complete 2.4 kilometers or have a fitness level to run 2.4 kilometers non-stop. So in that case, he needs more aerobic capacity. Second, MAS means maximal aerobic speed. Now this is one of the conditioning fitness test key performance indicator. Now we will cover that in week 4, where conditioning key performance indicator would be explained. So this exerciser has executed a conditioning test and mass is calculated, and this has come to be 10 km per hour. It is interpreted as weak. You would able to understand why it is weak once mass as a key performance indicator is been explained. So this exactly same case would be repeated in week 4. You would able to interpret the conditioning test results. So for the current case, the mass is less and it needs improvement. So I will not go through the other fitness variable because this course emphasizes more on CRF and conditioning. So when it comes to CRF and conditioning, it is very clear that aerobic capacity needs to be improved up to 42 ml per kg per minute, and mass needs to be improved up to 10 km per hour. That is a 10% increment, and that is because the client's goal is to able to have a capacity to run 2.4 kilometer and improve that run duration or run performance. So in order to achieve this goal, and considering the fitness level background with respect to cardio and conditioning, a measurable goal of 9 weeks is set to improve cardio up to 42 and conditioning, mass represents aerobic conditioning up to 10 km per hour. Now let's create a periodized training for the given case. Now since multiple fitness variables are trained in a week, a parallel periodized training is selected. Now there are total 9 weeks. So and the exerciser is experienced in having a week by week stimulation, because he has been exercising since last 4 weeks. He was already exercising continuously for 6 months. So having a stimulation is something that is his body is familiar with. So his work capacity is already developed with respect to experiencing the challenges of exercise per week. Considering this background, week by week stimulation is something that this exerciser can tolerate. Here emphasis is on whether the stimulation would be tolerated or not. With this understanding, 2 weeks back to back stimulation and 1 week of detraining, this loading paradigm is selected and it is applied 3 times. So 3 times, 2 weeks back to back stimulation and 1 week of retaining. So that way you have 3 mesocycles, 1, 2 and 3. So 3 mesocycles are created for 9 weeks in order to achieve the SMART goal that has been set. Now, related to the theory, periodization, it means within time frame. Now, this time frame is with respect to weeks. So, within week, you create cycles of training. Now, this is something beyond theory, and this is something which will help you to apply it in reality. Though the theory says that periodization is peaking in the right time or developing a fitness variable at the right time, these are all concept, but to make it a reality, the definition of periodization itself says that it needs to be in a cyclic pattern. The time frame, the weeks, the days need to be in a cyclic manner. And to make sure that a cyclic training is created, loading paradigm. The next part is, within this training, within this periodic cycle, what are you going to train? Which fitness variable are you going to train? And selection of this fitness variable is called as planning, which is in step number 4. Here, now this is cycle 1, cycle 2 and cycle 3, which is called as mesocycles. So, these are the 3 blocks or 3 cycles. Within this cycle, there are 3 weeks, week 1, week 2 stimulation week, week 3 retaining week, which is mentioned. So, how many times cardio workout, how many times conditioning workout, this is something what you as a fitness coach or you as an exerciser have to decide. So, let us consider what is the planning done. In week 1, in mesocycle 1, cardio training and power training has been done. So, I will emphasize only on cardio training and we will not be discussing the power training. So, entire first mesocycle, aerobic capacity is being trained. In mesocycle 2, now conditioning training has been introduced. But here the conditioning training, the frequency is 2 times and cardio training frequency is 1 time. So, the previous block builds the capacity and adaptation required in order to sustain conditioning workouts, because conditioning, the definition of conditioning itself says that it has to be greater than 90% of HRR. And the aim of this conditioning workout is not just to get the adaptation but to also increase the work capacity. It means ability to run for a longer distance. So, this demands to have a good foundation of aerobic capacity at the first place. For that reason, the previous block, aerobic capacity is being trained, and then in the second cycle, aerobic capacity is continued to be trained, but more emphasis is being given on conditioning, considering that the adaptation from the first mesocycle has been optimal and it would help to do the conditioning drills in the second mesocycle. Now, this is where the balance programming would be helpful. If you observe in the second mesocycle, in week 4, conditioning is been trained 2 times and aerobic capacity is trained 1 time. And in week 5, now aerobic capacity is been trained 2 times and conditioning is been trained 1 time. This is how within the training cycle, within the mesocycle, both the fitness variable have been trained and it have been balanced. Starting with conditioning in the week 4, giving more frequency, and then in the week 5 giving more frequency for aerobic capacity. Now moving ahead towards the third mesocycle, since conditioning is something the weakest, the last cycle is emphasized more on conditioning programming, conditioning stimulation, and no training is being given for aerobic capacity, because since last 2 mesocycles, that is total 6 weeks, aerobic conditioning has been given, and before that 4 weeks aerobic conditioning was already there. So this is more than enough for aerobic capacity adaptation to happen, so that more higher volume of cardio conditioning can be given and intensity can be progressed by each week, by each training cycle. So if you consider a whole picture, in mesocycle 1 there is no conditioning. In mesocycle 2 conditioning is introduced along with aerobic capacity training, and both types of fitness variable have been trained equally. In mesocycle 3, in the third block of periodized cycle, the shift is completely on aerobic conditioning, because ultimately that is the entire aim for the given exerciser. This way you make sure that you convert the foundation fitness variable adaptation to the advanced fitness variable in a very progressive and a balanced pattern. So in summary, we reviewed the fitness training design framework, which has 5 different parts. It includes goal setting, it includes periodization, and it includes weekly planning. We concluded the program design for case 1 by developing a periodized plan for each mesocycle. Your fitness variable was selected keeping one concept in mind: biomotor variable periodization. This concept of biomotor variable periodization will help a practitioner to decide where to start with, considering the fitness level and the current work capacity of the exerciser.